Morning. Okay, I'm gonna keep letting some folks in, and we will cover some best practices for buyers. Anyone have some good experiences this weekend they want to share? So everyone waits like 3 or 4 seconds for somebody else to speak. Okay, Markia, why don't you go first?
I went on a contract for my listing over the weekend that went live on Friday.
Went live on Friday and you're already under contract?
Yep, on Friday.
Beautiful. Congratulations. Where did you
Thank
get that listing, by the way?
That was the family member.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Are they super happy?
Oh yeah, they're very happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, who else?
I'll go.
All right, please go ahead.
I took a buyer listing. I mean, I had been working with them and I knew I would, but I'm not real pushy at first on that. And we put a contract in. We haven't heard yet, which doesn't bode well, but it's good that we, they'll get to see that process and kind of be prepared for the next. And I already have a couple things lined up. And then I had a Friday, I did some cold calling through friends, and the third connection, it was like, oh, I have a friend that might be, oh, I have not me, but the lady upstairs might be. And by the time I got to the third one, they're going to sell. And while I haven't taken the listing, I feel strongly that I have the listing. It's just a matter of if we're going to sell it off market or if we're going to put it on the MLS.
All right, let me make sure I heard that correctly. You called 3 friends, you got 1 referral for a future seller, and then the third call turned into a seller.
Yeah.
Okay. So by the way, that's not cold calling. That's like lukewarm calling, right? When you say, hey, this is Greta Massey, they're like, oh, hey, Greta, right? That's a good indication that that's not a cold call. A cold call would be, hey, Angela, you don't know who I am. I'm this realtor in Roswell, and I want to, share some opportunity with you or something like that. Nevertheless, wow. So 3 calls and 2 listing leads, one of which is almost certainly a slam dunk. Wow.
It's really 1. The second one has already sold, but it was still, I felt good about it because I need to get 1 under my belt.
There you go. And the beautiful thing is you have identified somebody else that is willing to share your information with others, right?
Yes.
And that is worth its weight in gold right there. Now it's as if you have like another buyer's agent that's out there in the universe running around trying to support your business, right?
Yes.
So that is that's a huge deal. So as you know, I'll just throw it out there for everyone. Referrals are probably the best thing in this real estate industry, right? And therefore, whenever you get a referral, I kind of say this in jest, but I'm also kind of serious about this. The second you get a referral, basically everything stops, and then you go reward the referral source, right? Through a handwritten note or a video text or a call, just expressing your gratitude, or multiple of the things I just mentioned, sending some cookies, whatever it is. You go over the top for the person that made the introduction, then you can resume your day, right? It's that important. It's that important.
Yes.
And we do not, it's very important, obviously, to make another call at the end just to thank them. Just be careful along the way. Obviously, there's a lot of confidential information. So the referral source it's not their business, the details of the transaction. You just want to let them know, hey, everything's going well. We're set to close in a couple of weeks. I'll keep you in the loop, right? It's that type of, kind of level of disclosure, right? You're not like, oh my gosh, the husband's such a pain to deal with, like none of that, obviously, right? And you want to make sure that you reward the behavior that the referral source has control over rather than when you get paid. Make sense? Great job, Greta. So how many more of those calls are you going to make today?
A bunch.
Sometimes we just need a small little win, and then we've got ourselves a new habit, right? Okay, anyone else want to share? Anyone? Candace?
Bill, I guess I'll chime in real quick. Nothing like
Anytime you want.
particularly happened over the weekend. But I worked a couple events, and a friend of mine who is very supportive of me was like, I've given 6 people your number this week to call you about houses, and she's having a birthday party on the 14th. That should be very promising.
Beautiful. Can I give you a tiny bit of coaching on that?
Yeah.
How many of those 6 have called?
Oh, none. Right.
Okay, I'm not saying they're not going to, but if you'd like to increase the likelihood that they will, I assume you want to do that, right?
Yeah, my plan, she had specifically mentioned 2 of the women who I've worked with before. So I was going, since we were crazy this weekend, I was going to kind of follow up with her today and say, hey, do you mind giving me Jess's number? I'd love to reach out to her and see if she needs anything.
So that's better than the first thing you said, but let me give you something that's even better.
Yeah.
Which is ask the referral source to make a 3-way connection.
Okay.
Essentially a public endorsement, right?
Sure.
So it'd be like, hey, Frank, this is a 3-way text, let's say, or a 3-way email. Hey, Frank, this is my, great friend, Melissa. She's a fantastic realtor. She is, super caring and patient and knowledgeable, and she would love an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have at this stage of the process. Hey, Melissa, this is my, friend from church, Frank. I think that's what the name I said the first time. And Frank and his wife are, looking to move to Marietta to be in a better school district or whatever it is, just a tiny little note about it. And then it's a 3-way endorsement. Then you now have permission to go to the person that was referred to you and say, hey, we have a friend in common, Frank. And that kind of takes it from, when you have the endorsement on the front end, it warms it up.
Sure. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And I'd like to say something. I'm listening to the 7 levels of communication, which I hope all of you will read. And in it, he talks about that each of us knows about 150 people, and each of those 150 people know about 155 people, 150 people. And if 20% of them are buying, that's 9,000 transactions.
Yeah.
So, and he teaches, his big thing is to teach us how to generate referral sources and how to treat our referrals. So I think it's an excellent book since you've got somebody who's on your side to really know how to make that a valuable relationship.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Candace.
Thank you for adding that. We talked about not so long ago, if the average family is going to, or average person is going to move every roughly 8 to 9 years, that means at any time, 10% or 10 or 11% of the people that you're in relationship with, or 10% of any kind of group of people will be moving that year. Right? So statistically speaking, if you go and talk to 10 people today, one of them is going to move this year. Maybe it's a rental, maybe it's a move out of state or whatever. It doesn't make a difference. You are talking to people that will do business every single day. You just got to ask the right questions to identify what, do they have any goals that you should be aware of? Do they have any questions? Are they nervous? Are they intimidated? Do they know how to become successful in this type of market? That's what they're relying on you guys for. All right, awesome. Thanks for sharing, you guys. I love how the majority of those were referral based. How exciting. Okay. When I came up with the topic for today, buyer best practices, I wasn't necessarily aiming for a very specific thing. So you guys want to share a couple of thoughts on what you're hoping to learn today? My idea was just to talk a little bit about kind of the mindset going into the transaction or going into the relationship, and then make sure we hit on a couple of very important parts of the process that you can control and you can build systems around. So anyone want to shout out an idea or two of things you want me to definitely make sure are covered today?
I'll shout one out.
Yeah.
Communication.
I love it.
Communication.
Okay, I'm going to make myself a little list here. Okay, what else?
I guess I'm going to piggyback off Candace of like, appropriate levels of communication, like either oversharing or undersharing.
Okay.
Bill, I would say education.
Okay. I love everything I'm hearing so far. Anything else? Okay. So,
How
so for the
soon to
people
get
that haven't, go ahead, Mark. Yeah. Sorry.
How soon to get the buyer brokerage agreement?
We'll definitely want to cover that one. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay. I'm gonna kind of piggyback on that one a little bit, which is like, at what phase do you like do the appointment, if you will, right? Like if somebody's like, hey, I'm gonna buy in 10 months, is it too early to meet with them about the buyer process, right? The short answer to that is no. Any other thoughts? All right, let's cover those, and I'm sure we'll have some more questions that pop up out of that. Let's talk about the BBA for a second first, the buyer brokerage agreement. Now, the theory that I want you guys, the opinion that I want you guys to have when you're entering, really when you're starting every single day is, okay, I'm going to say something that will likely offend somebody on the call, and I definitely don't mean it that way. I'm just speaking the truth, okay? The average real estate agent in Metro Atlanta will sell between 2 and 3 homes a year. Okay. Now, let me make a couple of assumptions about that type of person. Okay. Again, no offense. There's some people that, you know, don't have a goal to sell beyond that. I understand that. However, the person who is actually like kind of trying and kind of needs the income from it, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say they just can't live off 20 grand, right? And that's 20 grand gross, by the way. So then the brokerage is going to take some, they're going to have some monthly fees. They're going to have to become a real estate, you know, a board member. They are going to have the lockbox fee and buy a couple signs here and there. Then the tax man's going to come along. I mean, they'd be lucky to be netting 10 grand, right? So is there anyone here that would be cool with making 10 grand a year? Okay, so what do we know? That means you got to have another job too, right? So now you're working this other job, and a significant amount of time during the day or during the week is spent doing something else, which means you cannot be as strong as you want on the contracts, on skill building, on practicing presentations, on learning the market, right? On staying up with the technology, on, you know, marketing and social media and all that kind of stuff. So already we have somebody who is not in the best financial situation, who doesn't have the capacity to become a great realtor, right? Simply because of time. Okay, so you should wake up every day and say, oh my gosh, I am in such a great place in terms of, you know, having a great advantage here, because I do have the time, or I do have the discipline to make the most of the time to go and master the market, master contracts, master, you know, all the technology and all the extra programs and stuff that we have to help our people. So the average realtor that is or the average family that needs to move or sell, if they go out into the marketplace and try to find an agent, it's going to be a bad agent. Okay, it's going to be an agent that has their focus in several different places. Okay, and therefore that is going to cause them to be not as great as if they were focused completely on being a real estate agent, which means that as long as you're a person of integrity and you're a hard worker and you know exactly what you should be doing every single day, and you know whether you're on track or not, you should clobber those people. Okay, so the opinion that I have and that I've had for a long time is, if I don't call this particular person today, if they have a goal to do something in real estate, or if they have a question about something in real estate, if they don't talk to me, there's a really good chance they're going to get bad advice or have a bad experience, right? Or leave money on the table, or maybe they get to closing, but they got there by the skin of their teeth because they took on risks that they didn't have to take on, right? So I come at it with the opinion of, these people would be lucky to go through this experience with me. Does that make sense? So I don't say it, oh my gosh, maybe I'll interrupt their day. I hope I interrupt their day, because if I don't, they're going to find a bad agent. Does that make sense? So I'm doing it, obviously I'm doing it so I can, help families and make money and support my family and all that. But I'm also doing it as almost a defense, so to speak, to make sure that the people that I care about, or the people in my community, have great real estate experiences. Okay, so that's kind of the overarching mindset. Okay, now let's go to the BBA discussion. And this also is very similar to the timing discussion. When you identify somebody that has real estate questions or a real estate goal, the very first priority should be, let me see how deep of a relationship I can forge as soon as possible. Don't even think about the commissions. Okay, you do the right thing on the front end, you'll make so much money you don't know what to do with it. Okay, so the first priority is building the relationship. So if somebody were to say, let's say I'm helping a renter, and the renter ultimately ends up finding an apartment and I wasn't involved, that's okay. So I'm going to ask them, hey, how was your experience, right? Were you working with an agent that was helping you? No, experience was fine. I just walked into a rental, apartment complex and signed up. Okay, great. So how long of a lease did you sign? We signed a 1-year lease. So I'm writing down in my mind, okay, November of 2022, this guy is probably going to want to move again. At the very least, I now have my next touch point, right? Or a definitive touch point. I'll probably touch base earlier in the year just to check in and say hi and check in on their family and make sure they're happy, yada, yada. But I definitely am going to be checking in the fall to make sure that they have their questions answered and I know whether they're planning on staying or leaving or buying or whatever, right? So I'm making notes in my CRM about how I can serve this person at the highest level in the future. Okay, so they say, well, yeah, this is probably the last lease we're going to sign. We're going to buy. Say, awesome, awesome. I'd love an opportunity to help you. Once you guys get settled down, you think I could take you for a drink or meet for coffee or something like that, just to teach you a little bit about how to best prepare for that process. Right? It's somewhat of an informal presentation, but it's worth your time because you're building the relationship. Does that make sense? Because a lot of agents, first of all, they don't do stuff like that. Let's just put it that way. Okay. They're not in the business of building relationships. They're so concerned with the next commission check that's all they can focus on. And it's clear when they meet with buyers and sellers. Does that make sense? So priority number 1 is the relationship. So if you ever ask me, is it too easy or too early to meet with a buyer because they're not going to buy for a year or so? The answer is no. Now, I wouldn't show them a ton of property or anything unless they have the capacity to move forward with something. But that doesn't mean that you can't, take them for a drink or a cup of coffee or, meet them in the park or something like that, right? Okay, buyer brokerage agreement. Here's the deal with buyer brokerage agreement, guys. And I don't mean to sound cynical about this, but I know it's going to come across this way. If, let's just say I meet with Ashley, and Ashley and I have a great meeting, right? And everything goes flawlessly. And I put the buyer brokerage agreement across the table and she signs it. She's like, this is awesome, right? And then I'm calling her to, show her property or, take it to the next level or whatever with the lenders and all that. And she ghosts me. She just stops answering the phone. She won't respond to email, won't respond to text, won't respond to phone calls. What am I going to do? Right? I'm too busy trying to find the next person than to chase her down for, a commission if she were to buy with somebody else, right? So in some respects, the buyer brokerage agreement is symbolic, right? Now, I don't want to underestimate the role of the fact that it's symbolic, right? When somebody puts pen to paper, the relationship changes a little bit, most of the time. But if it doesn't, gosh, it's like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna spend my time chasing a deal I know I'm not gonna get. I'd rather chase a deal I know I could get, right? So now there is obviously there's license law to talk about, which is until that is signed, they're your customer. And according to Georgia license law, you're only supposed to do ministerial tasks for them. Ministerial tasks, as I was always taught, was things you could do with your hands and your feet. Primarily, it's things they could essentially do on their own. right? It's what are the taxes, how many bedrooms, what's the square footage, when was this home listed, when was it last sold? It's all public information, basically. The second they want you to use your brain, things like, what should we offer? What do you think this place is worth? Oh, how should we fix this problem? Any of that kind of stuff, they should be your client, because you're using your brain, you're giving your opinion, you're talking about strategy, you're talking about, the actual paperwork and that kind of stuff. Okay, now, you and I both know that that is violated every day, hundreds of times a day. Okay, now when you specifically explain that to the buyer, what is happening is the vast majority of the time, any other agent they might be courting is not talking that. They're not saying that to them. Meaning if you were to say, hey, here's what I can do for you and here's what I can't do for you, if they are chatting with another real estate agent who they've not signed with and they're doing things that they're not supposed to do, then it becomes obvious and they say, oh my gosh, this guy is breaking the law, right? I'm going to go to hang out with Bill because Bill doesn't break the law. He teaches me things. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now with that said, generally what I do is at our first meeting, right? License law says it should be your what's the phrase exactly they use? The first meaningful experience or something like that, I think is the phrase. I will, show them what I do, right? I'll show them how I work. I'll get all the information I need through asking questions. And then I'll hand them a blank copy of the buyer brokerage agreement. I'll say, look, this is a document called the buyer brokerage agreement. Until it's signed, this is what I can do for you. After it's signed, this is what I can do for you. And, I'd like for you to read this through. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm not expecting you to sign it today, although that sometimes causes them to sign it, interestingly enough. But I'm not expecting you to sign it today. I want you to, obviously experience what it's like working with me, right? And if you like what you're experiencing, then we'll make it official. And if you have some more questions or whatever it is, then I'll be as patient as you want me to be. Right. And next time we meet, we'll chat about it again. Does that sound fair? Oh, yeah. 9 times out of 10, they're going to message you that night and say, hey, how do I sign this thing again? Right. But if you're like, here, you better sign this or I'm not showing you anything. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Right. That you're asking them to sign a loyalty agreement, yet you haven't shown what it's like to be in a loyalty relationship with you yet. Right. Is anybody gonna that's like asking a date to be your girlfriend before the first date? They're gonna say, this is not the way it works. I need to see what you're like, right? So I've never been overly aggressive with the buyer brokerage. Now I have been pretty forthright with sharing it with them and helping them understand the role that it plays, but I've never been overly forceful about it, right? Until it's painfully obvious it should be signed. Any questions on that?
One silly question, Bill. When it
No
comes
silly
to
questions here.
the purchase and sale agreement, like if you get to that, so obviously you need the BBA before you do that, but if you get to that point, because you already have a relationship and everything, would there ever be a time where the KW, what do you call it, Market Center would say you can't move forward with the purchase and sale because you didn't get the BBA signed? Or is that just like a housekeeping item?
So, well, it's definitely not a housekeeping item because remember, if you're giving your opinion without it signed, then technically you're breaking license law. The other side of that is the buyer does not technically have to commit it to be your client. They could be your customer, meaning they could say, well, I don't want to sign a loyalty agreement. And then you would have them sign the customer acknowledgement, which essentially says, hey, you're my customer. And I'm going to go like, how much would you like to put in the contract? And they're like, what do you think? I say, I'm not your client, or you're not my client. I can't give you that advice. Okay, we'll put 450. Okay, 450, right? Or they're like, okay, we're ready to be your client. Oh, great. Okay, let's look at the data together, right? So they don't technically have to be a client, but they do have to sign one of 2 documents, either the customer acknowledgement or the buyer brokerage agreement.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. By the way, you should always have a couple of blank copies of this in your car or in your briefcase or whatever. Same thing with the listing agreement, because you don't know when it's going to happen, right? Remember, a lot of this business is about being prepared, right?
So I just want to, I keep and don't rely on the internet because you might be in a place where you don't have internet. I keep a binder in my car, one for buyers and one for sellers. And they have in plastic sheets, the ABCs of agency, protect yourself when selling or buying a home, all of the disclosures, as well as blank purchase and sale, blank, all the documents you need to write a contract, as well as the BBAs and the listing agreement. So I have one for sellers and one for buyers. And I just think it's come in handy so many times.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me like having like your real estate kit, if you will. Like that's a piece of preparation. Another piece of preparation could be like a couple screwdrivers, or a measuring tape, or a stud finder, or paper clips, or any of that. I mean, I'm just coming up with random things that, or an umbrella, right, that your people might need. Right? If they're like, well, how big is this room? I need to see if my kitchen table fits. And they're like, you got a measuring tape? And you're like, no, I don't have a measuring tape. It's like, what are you talking about? You don't have a measuring tape? Like, get a measuring tape in your car, right? Okay, now I'll say this is, again, if they don't want to, if they agree to sign it and then they just disappear, it's as if it wasn't signed. I mean, I'm not gonna push that too hard because I'm busy finding the next person. I already know this person doesn't want to work with me, right? Any other questions? Okay, cool. Let's talk about education for a second. So best practices with education are, the more educated you can make them, the better of an educated decision that they can make, right? However, you want to feel out you want to kind of feel the room, if you will, right? If somebody has done 50 transactions in their life, you don't probably have to tell them that there's a closing attorney involved and what the appraisal process is like and that kind of stuff, right? So read the room a bit, but err on the side of, hey, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes walking you through how it works in Georgia. Oftentimes it works differently in different states, and somebody might have done a bunch of stuff in a different state, and some of the things here are strange, right? There's not all states have like a closing where the buyers and sellers and all the agents sit at the same table together and smile at each other. That's actually fairly rare. Okay, Georgia, that's the way it's done. So the basics on education is, you want them to know what they're agreeing to understand, or to agree to. And I always like to pose it in terms of their options, right? So if the appraisal comes in low, here's what it means, and here's a couple of the ways you'll deal with that, right? If the inspector reveals something that's problematic, here's the way that we're going to do this first, then this, then this, then this, right? Let me teach you about the 3 contingencies: due diligence, financing, appraisal. Let me walk you through how it could go right, and let me walk you through how it could go wrong. Okay, just so you know. And remember, Marie Burgess, who came on our call a little over a week ago, she used to have, I love this, she used to have a little index card right by her telephone. And it said, here's what's going to happen next. And that was just a reminder for, at the end of each call, to say, okay, Angela, here's what's going to happen next. The home inspector is going to come in and do their thing. You'll get the report within 48 hours. Then we're going to do this document called the Amendment to Address Concerns, and we're going to send that off to the seller. Meanwhile, the lender is working through getting the initial file put together. The closing attorneys check and title. The HOA people are finalizing the account, and I'll talk to you in 2 days. And then this is what's going to happen after that, right? You guys ever done like a trust walk before? So Lori, let's say I was doing a trust walk with you, and I got my hands on your shoulders, and you got your eyes closed. And I'm just guiding you along. You're like, what's this guy doing? Why isn't he talking to me? Right? But if I say, hey, duck your head, there's a little branch there. Okay, take 2 steps to the right. There's a little mud puddle or whatever. You feel a lot more comfortable. So understand that a lot of people, this is you're not finding them when they're doing real estate transactions. They're generally not their best self, right? Their stress level is higher. Their anxiety is higher. They've got deadlines they're not used to having. They're trying to balance the other stuff that they normally do, work and family and all that kind of stuff. you want to make it as little stress as possible. You are the calming force in the transaction. Okay. Even though you may be super stressed also because things might not be going right, you set the tone for the whole deal. If you get news and you get all worked up about it, your client's going to get even more worked up about it. If you just state the facts, okay, the appraisal came in low. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this first, then we're going to try this, and then we're going to try this, and then we're going to see what happens. And either way, you're protected because we wrote a contract that protects you. And they're like, thank God. See what I'm saying? Okay. Let's talk about communication for just a second. This is kind of going to sound a little raw, but the level of communication that is expected of you is going to be different for every single client you interact with, right? So the best way to figure out what the appropriate level and type of communication is, or what that person is, to ask them, right? You know, one of my goals is to make sure that you are comfortable and confident and you feel protected at all times during this transaction. There's going to be a lot of times where I have to deliver positive news to you, and there's going to be, unfortunately, you know, every deal typically has at least one little hiccup, and there may be a time where I have to deliver, you know, not so great news to you. How, if that ever happens, how would you like me to communicate that with you? Okay. I got to tell you, they've probably never been asked that question, probably not even by their spouse. Hey, honey, next time I piss you off, how would you like me to deal with that? Right? They've probably never been asked that question. Okay, so you got to ask them, hey, if there's some hiccup in the transaction, how would you like me to deliver that news? Let me give you a hint, guys. It ain't text. Okay. Texting in a real estate transaction is for stuff like, just to confirm we're meeting at 3. Right? Or, hey, the showing just ended, you can come back to your home. It is not for things like the appraisal came in low. What do you want to do?
Insurance info.
Make sense? Okay, the other, in terms of just communicating with your people, you know, giving them updates along the way, you need to ask the question, hey, you know, along the way, there's going to be lots and lots of touch points where I need to tell you something, or maybe you need to tell me something. What is your primary, or what is your preferred method of communication? Say, oh, well, you know, I'm in surgery all day, so the best way to do it is email. Great. You better pay attention, because if you ask that question and they tell you, and then you do something else, they're not going to like that. And it's just evidence you're not paying attention and you're not remembering it. Now, there's going to be a time where you got a lot of files going on. And the Smiths like to email, and the Joneses like to text, and the, you know, Russells like to, you know, video text, and the other Smiths like to call. You better keep it all straight. You see what I'm saying? How do we keep it straight? Well, we have systems, right? So it may be in front of your workstation, you say, you know, Smiths are the one with 2 kids, and Russell's the one with 3 kids, and Jones is the one that likes to text only. And if you need to put a little reminder in front of your face every day, you better do it. Okay. Now, when they respond in a vague way, which they likely will, you need to go another level deep. So they say, well, so Mrs. Goodrich, what would, you know, one of my jobs is to make sure that we have, you know, steady communication along the way. And I never want there to be a time where you're thinking to yourself, I don't really know what's happening with my home, or I'm not sure really what's happening with my transaction. So I never want that to happen. So in an effort to make sure that you and I always are, you know, keeping each other up to date on things that are going on, what level of communication would you like to have? Do you want to speak, would weekly be okay? Would every other day be okay? Tell me a little bit about what you would like. And they're like, oh, I just want you to call me when there's things going on. It's a little vague. Make sure you dig a little bit. Or they might say, I just want good communication. I certainly understand that. So good communication means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What does it mean to you? Is that like, when you hear that, do you hear like, oh my gosh, that's such a brilliant, simple question? Or do you hear like, why is that guy being strange, right? He's just seeking out more information so he can serve you at a higher level, right? And if they come back and say, just call me when there's an issue, say, okay, well, I just, again, my goal is to give you the best experience ever. And again, I never want there to be an issue where you feel like you're not being communicated with. So I just take some extra time every time to make sure my clients and I, have this discussion in detail. Any thoughts or questions on that? All good? Anyone else? It's not as hard as you thought, right? If you have a question, just ask the question, right? Now, the complicated part about this sometimes is that oftentimes you are working with, two spouses. And as we know, opposites attract, right? So like I might be dealing with somebody, a numbers person and a very emotional person at the same time, right? Or I might be dealing with somebody who, has absolutely no frustrations or concerns. They're just, kind of seat of their pants kind of person. And then you might have the person who has like, has recorded everything we've done, including like what I was wearing and what they were wearing and what the weather was like and all that kind of stuff, right? There's people like that. So you just got to kind of test it out a little bit. And ultimately, it's helpful to attempt to figure out who the decision maker is. Okay. Oftentimes, if I never really put people in my car that much, but oftentimes the decision maker is the one that sits in the front seat, whether it's the man or the woman or the woman, whatever. It's generally the person that sits in the front seat. Okay. And you can generally tell the dynamic. For example, I would say that the person that talks the most is probably the decision maker, unless the person that talks the least is like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like kind of condescending in some way, right? So like, let's say the woman is like, okay, well, we want the nursery to be over here and the couch is going to be there. And this is the way the porch is going to get set up. And the husband's like, that's not going to be the way it is. The man's generally the decision maker.
And Bill, I often ask who the decision maker is. If I can't figure it out, I'll just say, which one of you made decisions in your family? And they'll tell me. It's
great point.
it's direct.
Great point, right? We are service people, right? And we have to figure out how to serve them. And I'll just say this thought really quickly is, don't forget that, we've asked this question before, like, who is your biggest competition, right? Who is your biggest competition? And most agents would say, oh, it's this other agent, right? Well, my biggest competition is Ashley, because she's also in town looking for buyers and sellers. Okay, fair. Okay, that's not where I'm headed. Okay, your biggest competition is yourself, right? Okay, fair. That's not where I'm headed. I would venture to say your biggest competition is the Ritz-Carlton or Amazon or, any service provider, right? Because the person, a general person in the marketplace is used to hitting a button and whatever they want shows up in 2 days, right? Or when they go to a Ritz-Carlton or something, the people know who they are. They're like, oh, hey, Lori, welcome back. Here's your coffee, just the way you like it, right? So what level of service are you giving your people? Right? What if Lori, let's say Lori's a seller of mine. Yeah. Let's say Lori's a seller of mine and she's like, oh yeah, Bill, let's meet next week. I'm going out of town on a little family vacation. Great. So Lori goes to the Ritz-Carlton and gets wined and dined for a week. Right? Oh, here's your New York Times, even though we're not in New York, right? That's the newspaper I know you want. So we're going to give it to you because we know how to serve people. Right? And you're wined and dined all week long. And then you come back and your potential listing agent shows up and you're not particularly organized. You're not particularly polished. You're not prepared. Right? And they're like, I don't think this is the person for me. You see what I'm saying? Another point on that is, let's say, and I'm making some assumptions here, but let's I'm going to say the number is probably around 450 to 500 and higher. Okay. You're generally looking at somebody who owns that type of home. You're generally looking at somebody that has some type of supervisory role at work. Okay. They're like a manager or a leader, or they have, like a secretary or something like that. So they're generally used to having a problem come into their world and then deciding which of their people is going to solve it. Right? That's the way they operate. So you need to position yourself as the person who relieves them of all the stresses that they are going to experience. Right? And maybe even come out there and say it. Hey, I know you're super busy with work, with family, with, yada, yada. And that's why I'm here. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of that. You don't even have to worry. Make sense?
I want to add on to what Bill just said. What he just said is super important. We have to tell people our value to them, and otherwise they think we don't do anything. And so I'm going to do this for you. I am in the background doing this for you. And it also lets them know they're important to you. So what Bill just said is extremely important.
Yes. And that also goes for, thank you for adding that, Candace. That also goes for when that can be your touch point to say, hey, we listed the home 2 days ago. We've already got 7 showing appointments. We optimized the listing on Zillow and Redfin and yada, yada, yada. We are scheduled to have an open house on this day. And I've got 2 agents from my productivity coaching group that are going to be shadowing us in case we have overflow. So everyone's being watched at the open house. That's what's up. Do you have any questions? Because there's some people that take a listing and nowadays the listing goes under contract in a day or two and the appraisal is no problem and they don't really have to agree to fix anything because it's a strong seller's market. The next time they see you is at closing when you pick up a $20,000 check. And they're like, whoa, I think I just overpaid for my service. When in reality, you probably earned every nickel of it. But if you don't share what you did or shared how you resolved issues without even having to let them know that there was an issue, right? Then they don't understand what you've done. That's like a wedding planner, for example. The wedding planner is like the day of wedding planner. Their job is to make sure the bride and the groom don't stress about anything, right?
And it'll feel awkward at first when you're telling people what you're doing for them. It you feel like it doesn't come naturally, but after a while, you realize that it's part of your service to them to say what you're doing so that they know that they're being taken care of. Otherwise they're just left with whatever their own thoughts are. And there's something called ANTs, automatic negative thoughts, that they tend to go to, like, well, I guess they're not doing anything. I guess my realtor's not doing anything because I haven't heard from them. They didn't tell me. So we have to tell them.
Yeah, I've had, I love the way you said that. They're left with their own thoughts. That is, I'm going to be thinking about that all day. That's really interesting. Yeah, we do not want to leave them with their own thoughts. Let's just put it that way, because again, they're at their worst in a real estate transaction.
And everybody is telling them other things too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I have had probably 3 or 4 times in my career driving away from the closing table after I just helped a buyer or seller. And before I got back to the office or before I got back home, I get a call from my client and says, how much of that check do you get to keep? Right? Or how do I get a check like that? Can I get into real estate? Right? What they're saying is they don't think I earned it. Right? Without saying it, that's what they're saying. And so you need to understand that, particularly if they're the ones writing the check, and some of these high dollar homes could be, 15 grand, 20 grand, 25 grand that you could make. You better show them that you're earning it. Because if you don't, they're going to think you're overpaid. And God forbid they're your Facebook friend or something like that, and you are playing tennis all day and not telling them what's going on. Oh, they're going to be pissed.
And I think it's important too to make them feel special. So it's not like, well, this is what I always do. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. I say, you know what I'm going to do for you today, and make them feel special, because we all like to be made to feel special, and we all like to know somebody is thinking about us in that way. So I'll say, you know what I'm going to do for you today? I'm going to call the exterminating company and set up your termite inspection. Simple thing, but it's what I'm doing for you. That's the key part of that.
I
It's
love
not
that.
it's what I'm doing for you.
I love that. And then it becomes clear to them that that's one more thing that they didn't have to deal with
Mhm.
because you dealt with it. Love that.
Hey, Bill,
That's really
can you
good.
touch on one more thing for me?
Yeah.
Just in regards to, and I guess, you know, with being a dual agent and having other agents show for you, whenever you're educating them about like just the proper thing, like do you just go about it and say, hey, I have a team that's, you know, I'm not available, but I have somebody open the door. I think it's just so common that you're so used to showing your own homes that it just seems kind of uncomfortable to tell your client that, hey, someone else is going to open the door for you.
Say, hey, thank you for bringing that up. Hey, this is a really active market. There may be times, you know, when a home comes on the market and we got to get out there super fast. And you don't necessarily have to say, and I work from 8 to 5, so I'll be ignoring you from 8 to 5. You just say, hey, a lot of times we need help, right? And that's why I've taken some extra time and care to make sure that I have a few team members that can take care of things, whatever they may be, showings or paperwork or signatures or writing an amendment or whatever, if they're time sensitive, to make sure that you're taken care of. Remember, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book says that people are not loyal to you. They are loyal to the standards that they have come to expect from you, right? I don't open doors like any better than anyone else. They don't care. They just want to get in the house. You see what I'm saying?
And so in regards to that, do you limit, like, you know, like if you were to show someone yourself and they really wanted to see 4 homes and it's a potential that they can put an offer in, but you're actually paying someone to open these homes and it's kind of like, you know, do you really want to go out? Do you like express to them like, hey, I'm paying a service to someone that's
No.
opening the doors? Or do you just, you know, pay someone to open 5, 6 doors because that's what your client wants?
First of all, that's not their problem. They don't care about that. They just want what they want. They don't need that extra, like, they don't need that weight on them. In fact, it's probably going to frustrate them. I'm going to answer that. Go ahead, Candace.
I was just going to say, and I think I don't like to think of it as just opening doors. I think of it as a partnership because, for instance, if someone paid me to open the door, my job is to edify them. My job is to say, you're working with a really great realtor. I'm so glad to be part of this team. And you do that for someone when you're doing that for you. So it's a little bit more than, and they're also taking notes in case you do make an offer. They need to make notes of what's going on in the home so that they can be your eyes and ears.
They better be, or they're fired.
Mm-hmm.
With all due respect, right? And you wouldn't say, hey, we got this agent that is needs a couple extra bucks, and so they don't prepare or anything like that. They're brand new to the business. Hopefully they remember how to use the lockbox. They're going to be showing you the ones that the houses today. No, right? Vet the people that you're going to allow to interact with your clients. Okay.
So do you think we should have maybe because I guess it's you're supposed to relay information back, but you know, I think in most agents' eyes, it's like you got new agents. Hey, I'm trying to make extra money. Let me go open the door. Do we set that standard to say, hey, these are some things you should follow back up with the agent that you're opening the door for?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, with all due respect, it's not gonna hurt you guys, but it might hurt the people that aren't on the call. If I don't know that you're like, you know, you're going to show up on time and be professional, I'm not paying you to do anything. You don't get that job.
But I feel like in reality, when we ask, we're just happy that someone's showing someone. We're not really looking at the credentials or what they have. So it's just kind of like, okay, someone's opening the door for me.
So if that's the case, you're letting somebody else set the standards for your business. You're letting
right.
I mean, I mean nothing against that, obviously, but you're letting Key Police set the standards for your business. I want to set the standards for my business. Okay, and just a quick note on that. back when I was having showing agents, we paid a percentage of the commission, not $25 or $35 a door. Okay, so I mean, I would pay Pam 10% of the entire commission as long as she showed probably about 10 houses or less. As soon as she started showing more than that, I'd pay her 15, and every once in a while I'd pay her 20 just to show. And if I had her, like I've been taking Saturdays off for over 10 years. So if she wanted to, if she was going to go show 2 or 3 houses to somebody and then write the offer, she got $500 for a day's work. Like I'm not saying I probably overpaid, but I overpaid because I wanted a great partner, right? So if you're going to worry about $30 a door, I think you're thinking about it from the wrong angle, right? So if your commission check is $15,000, for example, Pam helped me on plenty of those, and I paid her 15%. That's $2,250. Let's say I divide that by $50 a door. That's 45 doors. Okay. Personally, I think you guys should insist on a lot more than most people are willing to pay. You'd be better off going and finding a client yourself. Now, hopefully I don't get yelled at for that. Does that make sense?
And I think too, that when you have the conversation with your client after someone has shown them, you get feedback. How did the showing go? And you can also say, if it's a brand new agent's going to shadow before they ever go show a home. So they'll be at least a little prepared.
Maybe. Right.
That hopefully what happens.
Hey, how'd the showing go? I don't know. This woman showed up 45 minutes late and her, with a ice cold coffee in her gym outfit. Oh, really? Okay, well, she's never going to get another opportunity.
And I'd say you'd have that conversation beforehand about what you expect, because it's just like when somebody does an open house for you, they're a reflection of you to the seller.
Yeah.
And so it's important that when the seller drives by, and sometimes they will drive by, they see open house signs and they see balloons and they see that there's some, advertising. And I always send my sellers the open house advertising.
Again, letting your clients know what you're up to. Hey, this is the FMLS sheet. You happy with the way all this reads? No, you forgot to talk about the fact that it backs up to a nature preserve. Oh yeah, okay, nature preserve, right? You want to make sure your people are happy.
And the same for a showing assistant, Markia. If it's somebody that is an extension of you, so you want to have a conversation, like Bill said, setting the standards for your business.
Yeah. All right, cool. Was this helpful? Any other thoughts, questions? I think the summary of today is, if you don't know the answer, ask your client directly. How frequently would you like me to communicate with you? Which method of communication do you most prefer? How's everything going? If there's negative news to share with you, what is the best way to do so?
And one other thing is, in order to get the 5-star reviews, I like to set that up from the beginning. What will make this a 5-star experience for you? And then during the transaction, is everything still feeling like a 5-star experience to you? Is there anything I can improve upon? Is there anything that you have concerns about? Address them during the transaction so that they're not left at the end with dissatisfaction, because then you won't get the 5-star review.
You probably won't get a review at all.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, and you can kiss the referrals goodbye. Right. Okay. Beautiful, guys. I hope this was helpful.
One quick
yeah, Lori,
question.
go ahead. Yeah,
if you don't mind. So when you're showing a buyer, and I know we're not really supposed to be giving our opinions or anything, of course, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay. I was going to say, when they specifically ask you, well, what's your opinion? Is there a right or wrong answer? That was just kind of something top of mind.
You mean like, what's your opinion of this, kitchen or something?
Yeah, or just overall in general. What do you think of this house? That's just been approached to me sometimes.
Yeah,
it kind of puts me in a,
It's a great question. And, I think it's always, again, nice to use some comparative analysis, meaning like, well, I think the floor plan here is a little bit more open than the floor plan of the home we just came from, right? Or I think this, this house is the first one in the neighborhood, and so the whole front yard is the neighborhood monument, and that one didn't have that issue, right?
Okay.
Or, hey, I know you told me a big backyard was important, so I feel like this home is probably a better match for you with respect to that, right? But if I was being completely honest, I'd be like, Ackworth, man, that's far away from Atlanta. Why you want to live up there? Right? You got to keep that stuff to yourself.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I know that. It was just, didn't know the right or wrong answer.
I would always try to bring it back to something that they have vocalized.
Okay.
Right? So if they say, they want an open floor plan, by the way, that's very vague. Hey, an open floor plan means a lot of things to a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Can you share with me what it means to you? Well, an open floor plan to me means that the kitchen and the family room open to each other. Beautiful. So just out of curiosity, would you ever consider buying a home where that was not the case? Can you foresee just a set of circumstances in terms of the home and the school district and the price and whatever, where if this family room and the kitchen do not open to each other, would you ever consider buying a home like that? And they say no. You better look at every single picture of every single home that you send them. And if it's got a family room that does not open to the kitchen, don't bother showing it to them.
Okay.
You see what I'm
Thank
saying?
you. Mhm.
Yeah. But try to, the way that is going to work the best is if you know enough about what they want or what they don't want to cross-reference it. Right? You can also talk about the condition of the home. Right? Say, hey, I'm noticing a lot more wood rot at this property, or I think this home will probably need a paint job before that home did. It can be. I like to always try to compare if I can,
Okay.
because that's ultimately how they're going to be making decisions. I want this one instead of that one, right? I want to pay this price instead of this price, right? The mind generally goes to comparison, right?
And in a lot of cases, you can tell, walk into a home if for them or not, because their demeanor changes.
Way before they figure out what kind of knobs the master bathroom has, right? They probably know in 10 seconds if that's the home for them or not.
Right.
Right. And you can pick up on that. Hey, what do you like? What do you love about this home? Oh my gosh, I love the fact that the basement door opens to the to the backyard. Awesome. Right? Oh my gosh, this is a perfect playroom for the kids. Oh my gosh, it's a perfect work from home space for me. Right? Perfect. You're jotting it all down. I mean, you are like literally like a scribe all day trying to figure out what it is these people want. Make sense? Stacy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I had a question. Sorry. So this is a question because I'm new. You may have already done this, but I'm curious. The kit that Candace mentioned, having ready in her car with all sorts of different resources.
Yeah.
Do you ever do like a workshop, like a PC workshop where we get together or maybe we do it at home on Zoom, but where we put those pieces together? That would be super valuable.
Yeah, we've not ever done that actually. That's certainly something I would be open to. Yeah, Candace and I will talk about that. We might start by just making a thorough list, right, of what should be in there, and then resources to print it out, or links to buy something or whatever. Try to make it real simple for you.
And I'll bring them in the office, so anyone is welcome to come in and copy mine.
Yeah. Like, another thing is probably like a flashlight, right? Candace, you remember showing homes in foreclosure days where 2/3 of the homes we'd walk into had no electricity?
Yes.
You're showing these homes late at night and they're like, okay, I can't see the kitchen. It's like, you got a flashlight? It's like, I didn't the first time, but I definitely did the second time.
I have a stun gun that has a flashlight on it, and you can hold it in your hand, and it just makes me feel very secure sometimes when I'm with someone I don't know. And it's been a while, but you can use it as a flashlight. So I love that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There are some weird homes.
Yeah. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. Don't forget tomorrow and Wednesday, we're gonna have guest speakers, and Candace is gonna be running those in her room, in her huddle room. So you can take a look in the chats if you don't have that link. And thank you very, very much for everyone that chimed in today. And we'll come back Thursday and talk about seller best practices, and that'll be back in my room. And then don't forget, yesterday was the end of week 3. So if you could just take a moment to update your numbers, that would be fabulous. Candace, what was the?
I wanted to say into dual career mastermind from 6:30 to 7:30 tonight. You don't have to be dual career to come, but I'd like to have at least 5 people there. And we're going to be talking about, you've got the list, what happens next. We've been going in a series from taking a lead to a listing and all the way through the transaction and follow up. So right now we're in the 3rd stage, which is we've done pre-listing, we've done the lead, we've done pre-listing, we've done the listing, and now we're doing what happens after you've taken the listing.
Beautiful. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you later. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bill.
Mhm.